Welcome to this webinar from the Open Group, which today is being brought to us by a very active member of the organisation, BizDesign. Before I hand over to Rob, our speaker today, I'd just like to go over a few housekeeping issues to keep today's event moving forward smoothly. So we would encourage you to ask questions during this event. The best way to submit a question is to use the QA text facility. If you write a question in that text facility, can ask you to address it to all participants. Everyone gets to see the questions that are being submitted. And we handle all the questions that we can at the end of the presentation. Of course, we don't have time to handle all the questions. Please do feel free to send in your question via email, and I'm sure we can answer that offline. The event is also being recorded fully, so if for any reason you have to leave early, or if you experience any local technical difficulties, then a full event recording will be available tomorrow, and you'll receive an email with the appropriate URL where you can access that recording. I also believe that Rob is going to make today's presentations available, and I think he'll be including a URL in his presentation guiding you to where you can get a PDF of his slides. Rob, if you're ready, can I ask you to start your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Shane, for the introduction. Welcome everybody to this webinar. I'm going to talk about case experiences and best practices using ArchiMate and TOGAF for implementing enterprise architecture. You can see on this first slide also link to my LinkedIn and a link to our website, bizdesign.com, in which also a copy of these slide sets will be placed after the webinar. I will end with the presentation with the exact URL where you can find a copy of the slides. A lot to talk about. So the pace will be quite fast, but still remember you can always look back at the copy of slides or the recording on the Open Group site. Agenda for today, I'll start with a short introduction on ArchiMate and TOGAF, not all the details, only the highlights, and then I'm going to talk about 4 case studies. So what do we experience in practice when organizations want to use ArchiMate and TOGAF? I'll talk about the business profile of these organizations, their approach, and focus on some examples of ArchiMate and or TOGAF. Each case study I will finish with the key lessons learned for this organization. Well, the nice thing is that the case studies I present today are 4 completely different organizations in terms of market, size, and also cultural and political aspects. So you see that there are also different lessons learned there. Then I'll finish with the main conclusions and some takeaways, and also some links to other information. First, about BizDesign, what do we do? We help organizations with enterprise architecture and business process management, tools, consultancy, best practices, and training. We believe this is essential in helping organizations forward to always have a mixture of those 4 elements. Our tools are architect and BizDesigner, architect for modeling ArchiMate models. Which you can see are some of our clients and offices worldwide. We are present all over the world, Netherlands in Amersfoort and Enschede, but also North America, UK, France, further on. Here are also some clients of which I will be talking about today. For example, I'm going to talk about Achmea and Tata Steel, but also some other ones which will be presented. This is BizDesign, as I was saying, enterprise architecture, business process management, but we do more. Also business model innovation, Lean Six Sigma, and governance and implementation are service lines we offer. And if you want to learn more about our services and tools, please refer to our website, bizdesign.com, or go to our blog site, bizdesign.com/blog. On the site, also blogs of consultants as me can be found where we describe our experiences in practice. Now we're with the introduction of TOGAF and ArchiMate. First, set our minds some definitions. What are we talking about? What is enterprise architecture? my point of view, enterprise architecture is a discipline with the objective of steering changes. So you want to change things in an organization, so move forward from a current situation to situation. And to serve this development into a better situation, into processes or applications, infrastructure, enterprise architecture is a discipline that can help you there. Architecture has there two aspects. The product, that's the first one, that's really about a design. That's how the current situation is looking like, or how the target situation should look like. So that's about the coherence between process, products, information, application, and technical infrastructure. So the describing part of enterprise architecture. This is ArchiMate comes in place, a modern language to describe your enterprise and all the relations. Of enterprise architecture, there you also have the process side of enterprise architecture. How can you implement an enterprise architecture? How I'm going to maintain it and make sure that's still up to date and also used in projects. Well, we have the process side, more working, in which TOGAF architecture development method is the main standards which is used worldwide to implement EA. So way of working, people and resources, doing what, which tools. That's my opinion. So it's also where the webinar is about. That clients use often the combination of TOGAF for the process side and ArchiMate for the product side. Visualized in the next slide. So, as I was talking about, for a lead enterprise architecture framework, we believe that you have a combination in using TOGAF for process side and ArchiMate as the modeling language. And then the thing is, here in the center, you will that the 2 points that TOGAF describes can be modeled perfectly with the ArchiMate language. So this is where the two standards meet each other and they can be combined really good. Or in a central repository where you can also use reference models to, for example, the reference model that are already present in TOGAF to the complete EA framework. More on TOGAF, I was talking about the TOGAF architecture development method. This is the core of TOGAF. TOGAF has more elements like a capability framework, their reference models, and also guidelines and techniques. But this is the architecture development method, which is key in TOGAF methodology, which is from some preliminary work and then into an architect vision phase. And you will see that the vision phase is about a high level view of target state you want to reach your organization. Then moves forward into what are we going to do with our business information systems and technology architecture. So it's about describing those domains. And further on you have opportunities and solutions and migration planning, which is more focusing on, okay, how are we going to implement all those elements we have described in these architectures, which projects and work packages are going to deliver it, in which order are we going to do it. It's really about planning. And then the end finishes with some implement governance. So how do we make sure that the implementation is be done right, and we're going to introduce architecture change management to keep the architecture descriptions up to date. In the requirements management, which is really focusing on that all requirements that are developed by carrying out the ADM are stored centrally and are used in every phase consequently. Well, in a nutshell, the TOGAF ADM, which is central to TOGAF, to also use this often, which you can say, well, if you look at the ADM, you can split it up in 4 parts. The first one is about getting the organization committed and involved. So it's getting a grasp from all the stakeholders, create some kind of vision, and create also a support in management. The second part is really about getting the architecture right. So how is my business architecture, my information systems architecture, and my technology architecture looking? and how should target state look like. Third part is about maybe architecture work. So how are we going to deliver these architectures, which projects, in which order, and also the planning part. And the fourth thing is, okay, we can do once, but it's to keep this process running. Enterprise architecture is not something that you do once, it's something that needs to be maintained, that needs to become part of the culture of the organization. This is where architecture change management and requirements management plays. This is a short introduction of TOGAF. Now some slides about ArchiMate, a short introduction. ArchiMate is, so recall, about the product side of enterprise architecture. It's a modeling language to describe architectures in models. And ArchiMate is, well, the only real language for EA, because not only a language for describing architectures, it covers different layers, business, application, and technology layers, and especially the regions between those layers. So it is the only real modeling language that covers all those domains. It's not a graphical language, it's formal semantics, and it all, when it's supported in tooling, supports assist, for example, an impact of analysis, which you can see, okay, what is impacted if we're going to change something in this application or in this business process. It has techniques for visualization, so you can use ArchiMate to communicate with different kinds of stakeholders, to top management, to developers or designers, also where the viewpoints play an important role. In the case experience, you will see later I have some examples of these different visualizations for different stakeholders. And of course, open standard maintained by the open group, same as TOGAF. If you ArchiMate, this is the ArchiMate framework, which we see on the business application and technology layer. And as the columns, we see passive structure, behavior, and active structure, where we have the main ArchiMate concepts, which are not concepts, but the core concepts of ArchiMate look like this. So yellow elements for the business layer, blue for the application layer, and green for the technology layer. For example, this is the business layer, process and services and business goals. On the application layer, we see application components, application functions, and on the technology layer, we see networks, infrastructure services, and nodes. But it's all of ArchiMate. This is the ArchiMate core, and since ArchiMate 2 was released, we also have an extension which is called the motivation extension, which is to model elements like stakeholders, drivers, goals, and also requirements and principles. So this is really about, for example, the requirements management in TOGAF, to model requirements, and also more on the vision side in the ADM, all your high-level goals and stakeholders. And the second extension, which was added in ArchiMate, is called the implementation and migration extension, in which model elements like a work package, a deliverable, and a plateau. This refers to the phases in TOGAF where you talk about projects, deliverables, which elements of your EA should be implemented by which project and in which time. So that's a plateau. So these two extensions ArchiMate is becoming a total language which can be used throughout the whole TOGAF cycle. And then here also you see on the left the TOGAF ADM, and well, with the color coding you see on the right phases can be shown which parts of the ArchiMate language. So phase E, C, and E refer actually to the core of the ArchiMate language, so the business, application, and technology layer. You see preliminary, vision, and requirements management refers to the motivation extension in ArchiMate. Phases E, F, and G in the ADM, so opportunities and solutions, migration planning, and implementing governance, is referring to the implementation and migration extension in ArchiMate. Well, in my sense, the combination of those two standards is really working well, And we have a free download of a white paper about this combination where you can read all the details. It's an enterprise architecture with TOGAF and ArchiMate, and you can see the URL to this free white paper on this slide. Please feel free to download it. For the introduction, now into the 4 case studies, and I will start with the first case study, which is a big telco in North America, and organization, and the case was situated in the IT department of this telecommunications organization, where they do not only telephone, but also wireless, cable, and media. And they were in a greenfield situation regarding enterprise architecture. They really want to start from low, so create a solid foundation for EA. And they choose TOGAF as their starting framework. And started with the preliminary phase of TOGAF, in which you should tailor the TOGAF ADM for your organization. So really about evolving your architecture capability. We use a bottom-up approach, so really did it together with architects in a top-down approach. That's the mindset there. Think big, start small. So everybody had fantastic ideas about, okay, we want to do enterprise architecture on a strategic level, full scope, but that's not the point where we were at. So we start on a more operational level and really on 2 departments. And step by step, we were to extend EA in the organization. So think big, start small, really in those large organizations where EA is not that mature, is, in my opinion, a good approach. Something where we were facing was the landscape, which has many duplications. And this was from history, because the organization was involved by all kinds of mergers, by small local businesses who were together, and the organization was growing step by step. So there are a lot of duplications. And now they're so big that it was difficult to respond to a business change. There are all kinds of duplication of functionality. And this was also affecting the architecture work, because there were some architects in the organization, but they were not working together all, and they were all not working in the same way. They all had their own policy approach. There were no consistent reference model, no consistent architecture modeling. So it's really the main issue there to one way of working, also on the architecture level. We started with TOGAF, the TOGAF implementation. 3 words: train, tailor, integrate. We first had a group of 25 architects train TOGAF, that they at least know what TOGAF, what the common language is. This was really a good starting point. People were talking to each other, okay, what do you mean by a certain word? Why don't we choose just the definitions that TOGAF has? Then we talk about the same thing. We know the same definition. Okay, it's trained, but TOGAF is so generic, you need to always tailor it to your own organization. So we started with tailoring the ADM to organization. With the ADM and the steps, inputs and outputs, and discussed which inputs and outputs can we use in this organization, how do we use them, how do we integrate the ADM with current processes that are already running. And that's also the third point, integrate with existing frameworks. So, hey, if TOGAF prescribes something about governance, how does it fit in with our current governance? An example of this in the next slide. So, this is an example of how we integrated the ADM of TOGAF, which you will see at the bottom of the page. Please note this is also modeled in ArchiMate. Recognize the phases of ADM, visualized as a circle but as a flow. And on top you will see the existing solutioning process in place. It was a process that projects were using in developing solutions, these solutions. Why here that we made these connection points by sources in which we indicated example, on the left, an architecture vision activities according to the TOGAF DM, were having projects in development, what they call development of concepts. First, see that impact analysis was an important service that we were able to deliver from enterprise architecture perspective, when projects were thinking also about impact of their solution they were developing. What we had to do was integrating the IM into existing processes in the organization and show the value of enterprise architecture in this process. So, was talking about having to develop a clear vision. We had a deliverable, the architecture vision document and the statement of architecture work. These impact analysis, iterative gap analysis to define where the impact is in the current landscape. One is that we, on E level, we had multiple architects which were covering a whole part of the landscape, and all the individual projects only were looking at all parts. They couldn't oversee the whole picture, and from EA perspective, we could really add value there in setting a complete impact analysis. We are extensively the ADD from TOGAF, the architecture definition document. Large base on the projects, we were using the compliance assessment. When it was developed, our project was developing solution, we used the compliance assessment of TOGAF to check whether the solution was in line with the architectural principles, for example, and the target architectures we were describing. So, first step, integrating with existing processes. More steps which we are doing now, these, well, this architecture framework, but we're going to also use it in a new program and then further optimize it. So not a one step. Remember, things start small. We started small and we are now building it further and further, and also more experience. Main learn from this case is make your own framework. Good terminology, make integration points between AM and other frameworks explicit. And get people involved. And but we also all in touch with all the people, not in the architecture community, but all outside there, also management, also project managers. We use presentations, newsletters to get people to know, okay, here is EA, this is what we do, this is the value we add. Important. And we deal with culture and politics. It's about ArchiMate, focusing ArchiMate in a financial service organization, ArchiMate. Insurance company, with all kinds of risk and care insurance companies. It is a result of many mergers. You see here at the bottom all kinds of logos from the organization that merged into AEA. Times 25,000 employees, a revenue around 20 billion euro. So complex, more than 15 brands, more than 150 products and services, and over 250 business processes. Well, and then the number of applications around 1,750. Here, EA was really a key strategic instrument to manage changes, because you get the spaghetti. Challenges here were rationalization and standardization of their application landscape, and general improvement of business IT alignment and application infrastructure alignment. Of course, also the financial crisis put more pressure on that they need to cut costs and need to rationalize these applications that may be doing the same first. I think they had some other EA methods, so they didn't use TOGAF yet. They had the Novius framework and the DIA framework, known in the Netherlands, but they did choose for ArchiMate as modeling language. Why do that? Well, we modeled in Excel, VCO, PowerPoint, but you can't use it. It's very hard to analyze a PowerPoint diagram. And they also want to adhere to open standards. ArchiMate is more a consistent way of modeling. You can better maintain the models, and possible to generate different views for different stakeholders and do quick impact of change analysis. To implement ArchiMate here, well, very quick. 2-day training for 50 architects and then just started modeling. Not too much thinking about, okay, who is doing what and which processes we need to follow. Just get some results, show some value. Start modeling on technical infrastructure and then further to the application and process. And all store models in a central repository. So we share knowledge, integrate the models, and start generating views. So it really quickly shows some results and some value of using ArchiMate. And this was in the success at ArchiMate. Examples of the first models that were created, they are Dutch, unfortunately, but you recognize probably the symbols. So here we have some business process models in our of these insurance company. And program is about on the application layer. So we see here some applications which are delivering services to other applications and at the end are supporting a business function. Here we are already making the connection to the business layer, and we could show diagrams which are toward the business IT alignment. And then the connection to the technical infrastructure. We see here blue ones, application components, but we connected it to the infrastructure layer, so to the databases, the nodes, the system software, and we then ask us on questions like, okay, there's a certain node that has performance issues, which application of what is influenced. Via structure, we could answer that this application may be in trouble. Ordinary question, what structure is my application depending? Also those kinds of questions we could answer because connected in our ArchiMate models all applications to the technical infrastructure layer. Some of the ArchiMate diagrams here, the lessons learned are, this point I was talking about, really important, deliver value. So show ArchiMate can answer questions, can give you to projects in terms of impact of change analysis. And don't talk too much about methods and tools first. Of course later you need them, but to quick start, show value. Use some tools to create a real experience and create some kind of success story. We choose to not use the whole ArchiMate language. As you may recall from the intro, ArchiMate is an extensive language with quite a lot of concepts. We made our own subset to start with. Simple. And you can, if you have some value and you get some more people involved, then you can always, upgrade ArchiMate use, so use more concepts. But to start with, create subsets. You need people in the language, 2-day training, and also into modeling in what we call their project architectures. So this was a document which was used there. The project had to start with a high-level description of what the project is going to do. Well, we created ArchiMate as the modeling language to describe these high-level project architectures. And these work well to get people to know with ArchiMate and spread the word across the organization. Okay, so case 2. We're now going to the next case, which is the combination of TOGAF and ArchiMate in the public sector. In the Netherlands, the organization business profile is about the tax and customs administration. Very large company in the public sector, 30,000 and more employees. Well, you see some more numbers about incoming taxes and number of applications. Quite a lot of architects, around 100. To face with new legal tasks, besides just traditional tasks. And they also had a bit of transformation from what we call act-oriented, so and then act to a question of the government or people, to a client-oriented organization. So really thinking about, okay, how can we serve the clients best and become a more process-focused organization. But it's really a traditional organization, high complex, a lot of legacy, which makes it difficult to change. But there was already a long tradition of modeling. You see, about architects, they're doing all kinds of modeling and architecture work. But it's not integrated. Everyone's doing it or with different or with different tools. So it was integrated. So we saw there that there's a really need for a well-integrated model on a high level to provide an inside overview over the whole company and make really models that can be analyzed. It was one of the organizations that, well, looked about the ArchiMate project back in the days when it was early starting. It's one of the early adopters. This Visio, PowerPoint, those kinds of elements, but in 2008 they really selected an ArchiMate tool and did an enterprise-wide rollout. So all these 100 architects are working with ArchiMate in Design Architect. All 2009 they implemented part of TOGAF. So this started with focusing on the modeling language. In 2009 they focused on the side. And what they did, they already some architecture processes and also deliverables, but they really made an improvement in the existing EA processes and deliverables based on the TOGAF framework. What they, for example, did is looked at all the TOGAF templates of inputs and outputs and mapped them on their existing deliverables they had and took all kinds of input from the TOGAF deliverables to make their own deliverables more valuable. Example views. So this was one of the first views they created, with a high-level view of their business function. And it's in Dutch, but high level because this one, for example, is just saying executing the law in generic. So this is what we have to follow the law, and then it's all divided down into, okay, what kinds of functions do we have? So we have to get from the people, we have to receive messages from the people. Now, all those kinds of functions are described here. So they did more a top-down approach, started on the highest level available and described the business functions there. Another example, this is more on the business objects, so on the information side, because what they do is they deal with information, and so it's really core to describe well how the information model looks like. And you get kinds of diagrams in which you define these objects and relations to each other. And then traditional architecture diagram in which you see the relation between business processes and applications. I had to anonymize it. The point here is that there's a lot of these what we call composition views. Business processes and then the applications are drawn inside them instead of drawing with all kinds of relations. This worked really well to communicate with stakeholders on a more management level and project management level. This diagram is referring to the topic I was talking about, that they map their existing architecture deliverables to the TOGAF ADM. So, for example, you see here on the left, these boxes are the chapters in their own, what they call domain architecture deliverables. This was already the deliverable that was in place at the organization, and saying, okay, well, we have section 1 there. What is it referring to TOGAF? It refers more to the architecture vision phase. And then they took from TOGAF all kinds of best practices of, for example, the template TOGAF has for an architecture vision document, and updated that in their own deliverable. they take all the TOGAF methodology because the thing is, this organization has the nature to always use their own terminology. So their tactic here was to, well, boot stuff from TOGAF and put in their own deliverable. Not only on the domain architecture side, but also, for example, on capability architecture side. So we hear some other sections of what they let's say a project start architecture. Nice, they still have TOGAF as the framework, and they use it the same way. They use it as a reference model and pick the good thing out of TOGAF and integrate it in their own deliverables and processes. Here, well, they are still learning, but one of the main things they learned is ArchiMate. If you ArchiMate enterprise-wide, it makes it more easier to communicate with all the architects over those different names. Communicates better with designers. There's debate about, okay, what is enterprise architecture, where detailed design. There is some kinds of current about it, but now explicit. It was always there, but it was not explicit, and because you now model with ArchiMate, it becomes surface. At what level people are start questions, okay, to what level of detail they need to ArchiMate, and at what level we go into a detailed modeling language like BMN or UML. Those kind of questions are really discussed now. But, some of the processes and products and help a lot to standardize it. So we know the different deliverables from EA perspective are more standardized, and you can, if you look, you see that the TOGAF nature in there. Individual architect, ArchiMate is a chance. You can create more formal diagrams or formal diagrams if you want. And the more important is the last one. Now one modeling environment. You can model in that environment and generate views. This is something they couldn't do with their previous approach. So the work of the architects is much more relevant. They can get more results. Okay. Again, our market, steel industry, it's about Tata Steel Europe. ArchiMate and TOGAF to implement a new supply chain. Some about the company. Steel is part of the Tata Group, and the Tata Group is one of the largest growing or fastest growing organizations. Look at us, it's based in India, 400,000 employees, and on more than 80 countries. The group does a lot of things. They do engage in IT engineering, but the Tata Steel Group is part of materials, and the Steel Group is again consisting of different locations, India, Thailand, but also Europe. And we have again different locations in the UK, also in the UK, and we have strip projects mainly in Europe. This is in IJmuiden, Netherlands. This is we use to call Chorus. So British Steel and the Dutch Steel Company, they formed Chorus, and Chorus taken over by Tata Steel in 2009. Group has the market focus on those so they create a lot of steel for the automotive and packaging industry, but also rail, energy and power, and large lifting. Here a picture of Tata Steel Europe. It's located in Europe. Well, there's a lot of hubs, but the ones that are pointed in red are the most important. So 2 main sites in the UK and 1 main site in IJmuiden in the Netherlands. Largest production facility. They can create all kinds of different steel there. And to get an idea, it is very large. So if you look at the IJmuiden site, on the left, the whole where the factory is situated. So it's quite, well, if you look at the city of Amsterdam, it's a significant part of the city of Amsterdam. So very complex site, really a lot of IT. Don't underestimate, it's also a lot of IT, because those processes in the factory are supported by IT. Of the business. In such a steel factory, you see raw materials are to pick up that steel made, casting, rolling, coating. Well, not going into detail, but the business process is quite complex of producing steel. And Tata Steel is able in America to create all kinds of different steel for different markets. Facing, if we go to, okay, what is the enterprise architecture doing, or what is it, why is it important at Tata Steel? What they need to do is to standardize and improve processes and IT over at different sites. So we have three main sites, one in the Netherlands, two in the UK, and to integrate those in one new supply chain. So it doesn't matter where an order comes from, there comes an order for a set of steel, be produced in America or in the UK, it shouldn't matter. They need to really be flexible in the supply chain to the production ready. So it's really necessary to improve efficiency and productivity and effective use of the total resources. So as I was talking about, you get a lot of orders and the total production capacity has used in the most effective way. So you need to get an overview of, okay, what is all the processes we can do, what are all the prices and the resources we have, and how can we plan them in the most effective way. So a competitive market, and the economic crisis really hits the steel market hard. So we need to cut costs, and EA is helping there. I have now examples in Tata Steel and Muiden, in Tata Steel Europe, I have to say, so also UK, they use TOGAF and ArchiMate both to build their enterprise architecture. And example, I have here their EA processes, in which you may recall here on the left, the phases of the EA are modeled in ArchiMate. And also the governance of EA there is based on TOGAF. You will see this diagram that the aim is a bit, it's now from also added some other elements there. So the TOGAF ADM to their own situation. Also modeled the EA principles in ArchiMate. If you refer to the right, you can see that the diagrams we are creating there are referring to the different phases in the TOGAF ADM. So in the phase A, for example, you define your architecture principles here in ArchiMate. Architecture principles need to be understood by everyone, and they're also checked in a compliancy assessment. So if a project is building solution and then there's a compliance assessment, like in TOGAF, in which the rules are checked, wherein the lines are checked according to these architectural principles. We modeled an enterprise model. So the high-level business functions and business processes that need to be in place in every site. So these are the same processes for Muiden and in the two sites for the UK. Now, this is phase B of the TOGAF cycle because it's about the business architecture. Look at the supply chain which I was talking about, so an integrated supply chain of the Tata Steel Europe. We created this diagram, which is high-level process flow of the target supply chain. So this is a target diagram in phase B of the TOGAF ADM, which gives a high-level overview of the business processes and information flows. So all the related you see there are information flows. Stakeholder here was management. We showed this to project management of this program. Help to explain to the management what the new situation should look like. A little more detailed description. Based on this high level, we go into the detailed view in which we will see not only processes but also applications. Other folders, because we have here more the process and application designers, which were stakeholder of these kinds of views. So more detailed view of this high level process. Refer to phase B and C of the TOGAF ADM. We have again this high level supply chain, but then want to show the mapping to applications, but not with all those application components, but with a color coded mapping. So we create a diagram in which you will see the high process flow, and then with the color coding which applications in the target state should support it. Again, stakeholders on management level, they really like this diagram because it's not too complex and they could understand it. Also diagrams with color coding and further on are created with the Bridge Design Architect. You see here a link to a free trial version of this tool. Refer to phase B and C. Again. One for phase C in more detail on the application landscape and the data flows. So we that the target state of Europe at least consists of three main applications: JDA, SAP, and then MES, which the modules and data flows, which integrate these three applications. These were ArchiMate examples. We also looked at integrating A deliverables in their existing processes. So in the middle we see their existing project process, the phases when a project is executed. We placed different E deliverables like a project start architecture, as an architecture, a domain architecture, those phases of the project. And you are at the bottom the activities that architects are doing. So they really sign off architectures are delivered by a project. That is extensively using the compliance assessment of TOGAF as one of the mechanisms to make sure that solutions that are designed are in line with the architecture and the architectural principles. See the template of the compliance assessment, and Tata made their own version. And it works this: when these are ready in a project, then the architect of the project has to present it to the e-board, and there is an assessment. And if everything's okay, then the project can continue, and then the Doom architecture is also updated. And if in line, then sometimes the architects need to think about a new solution for this project. So they use one of the deliverables of the TOGAF extensively. A detailed modeling standards document in which we prescribe how ArchiMate should be used. So describe which concepts we use, which agents, how do we name the concepts, also more details about using the Bridge Design Architect tool. And this helps the architects to use ArchiMate in the same way, so we can really integrate all those models in one large repository and understand other models. It works perfectly good. Data Steel, we learn from the community, so working groups, but also conferences like the open group conferences. We create there an internal community. So all architects which are working with Data Steel, whether Netherlands or the UK, they see each other on a certain basis and are experiencing or doing sharing and learning. We call EA at work. Also big start small. We started with a small group and then we are extending and extending. The role of ArchiMate experts. So the first people who are working with ArchiMate are now ArchiMate experts, and other architects can ask questions to the more experienced users. And last but not least, we saw these diagrams. Some of these diagrams are really shown on a higher level management. Even at CEO level has seen our diagrams, and they were and you understand and see where it's going through. I help you perfectly there, but it's not really ArchiMate. It's also about communication and political skills to get that level. So, for case studies, I want to finish with some conclusions and takeaways. The TOGAF benefits and lessons learned. On the left you see the benefits. Well, it's an open method, complete, which is supported by many tools and service providers. There's a very active user community, and important, it standardizes your EA process and deliverables, like seeing at the public sector in the Netherlands, like we are at ArchiMate. Lessons, train, integrate. 3 words. Say it, make it your own framework, train the people, integrate it with your existing frameworks and processes, and the people involved. Artists and lessons learned, a concept integrate modeling tool, widely accepted, very easy to use, 2 days and you can kick off. On delivering value, it's really my advice. Create a subset of the meta model, start small, train the people, have some ArchiMate experts, and learn from the community. And by them, then you get extra benefits. If you can TOGAF at ArchiMate, you get an integrated, consistent way of modeling in the various phases of the ADM, like you saw in the Tata Steel example. Use ArchiMate as a full support of the viewpoints which are defined in TOGAF. Information and a really balanced approach to EA, not only modeling but also the process side. You need both. And we are interested in a combination of this to training and consultancy of TOGAF at ArchiMate to kickstart your EA initiative. Please refer to our website. To conclude my presentations, here's the final slide with more information. If you go to the blog or you go to design.com/downloads, you can download a copy of the slides in PDF format. And there's also some other interesting links to information material. Thanks for your attention.
That's Rob. Many thanks, and thank you everyone. We've been having quite a lively debate in the chat area. You've stimulated quite a bit of thought there, Rob. Just to go through some of the questions then we've got in the QA facility and work through some of them. We've got the first question here from Anton, and he's asking a question about ArchiMate. Does the language support automated processing of the specifications written in ArchiMate? For instance, application, stub generation, traceability to implementation, requirements and model checking.
Have a fully compliant ArchiMate tool, then all kinds of the functions you mentioned are supported by tooling. For example, the BizShine Architect tool has a mechanism to do all kinds of checks on your model, consistency checks, and rules you may specify yourself. Also, the links to requirements is there, and all the experts to other tooling if possible.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Another question here from Miank. What's your take on clients' adoption rate for ArchiMate? He says, I noticed BPMN is used for modeling. However, many organizations fail to completely automate using a tool, for example, EA. What do you think of that, Rob?
Look at BPMN. BPMN is only describing layers, I would say. It's not covering all the layers that ArchiMate has. So ArchiMate more as an umbrella language which describes all the layers, so business, application, technology, but also stakeholders, goals, drivers, the motivation stuff, and the implementation stuff like projects. And BPMN, it's focusing only on processes and some elements linked to it, but it's more detailed. So I see ArchiMate as an umbrella language, and if you say, okay, on an architecture level, I have described there a business architecture and also application architecture, then you can take elements of ArchiMate into your BPMN model to get more detailed and then automate it. But ArchiMate is intended as a more higher level modeling language and serves as an umbrella language. Same as UML. So UML is really focusing on the application layer. And if ArchiMate as umbrella language, you can really the dependencies between all those different elements in which BPMN and REL is less possible.
Rob, a question here from Gavin. You've given us 4 examples of organisations that have really embraced enterprise architecture, and Gavin's asking, do you need tips for selling the concept of architecture to people that the very word sends shivers down their spines? Can you help Gavin there, Rob?
Can you maybe repeat the second part of the question? Because I didn't...
Sorry. Basically, Gavin's asking, how do you go about selling the concept of architecture to people that really don't understand the value of enterprise architecture?
Okay, yes, I got it. Thank you. My main advice would be an important topic is really concerning everyone in the organization. And then, the first strength of architecture, I would say, is not to implement whole TOGAF, but to model some parts of this problem. And as saying, show value. So create some architecture diagrams in which you can show information that other people are not able to show. So, for example, what we did at another small local government organization in the Netherlands, they had the problem of, we don't have a clue which kinds of interfaces we have. There we could really quickly, with ArchiMate, make all the application interface explicit and make it explicit in a model. And the nice thing was there that, for example, people are all talking about interfaces, but when we modeled it in ArchiMate and we just generated some views, people saw that it was really complex. In fact, it was really a spaghetti. But we showed the spaghetti, and they people got, okay, so this is the situation we are facing. So making issue explicit and describing the problem, no information that people may be able to show visually. That's the starting point in showing the view of EA.
Thanks. A question here from Al asking, have there been any experiences integrating TOGAF and the Prince2 project management methodology, Rob?
Did it at some companies. Not aware of official integration. So, but indeed, I agree. If you have Prince2 as project management method in your organization, and you have then TOGAF ADM, there are certainly connection points, integration points, which you need to define and think carefully about. Okay, what are we doing in Prince2, and what is still an architecture activity? So, some is there, but it's not standardized in an official integration.
Okay, a question from Mike asking, will DYA infrastructure become obsolete when using TOGAF and ArchiMate? Are they complementary, or does it take extra effort to combine them?
You have to start with the point that the DYA infrastructure is now rebranded to the Open Infrastructure Architecture methodology, so OIAM. And the OIAM framework can be integrated perfectly with TOGAF and ArchiMate. If you have the OIAM repository, it's an online Wikipedia, you will see that the patterns described there are now all modeled in ArchiMate, and these patterns also map perfectly fine to phase D of the TOGAF ADM.
Question here from Bart asking about the ArchiMate in SharePoint 2013 and Visual Studio. He says, can you use ArchiMate as a BPMN visualization tool in SharePoint workflows?
Because I don't know SharePoint workflows, so I cannot give a complete answer there. I can just that we from BIS Design, we also have our own environment in which we have also a BPMN module, so where we can link Archi models to BPMN models, but that's our own tooling. I'm not aware of how SharePoint workflows works exactly, so sorry. Can't answer
Thank
that.
you, Rob. Well, I think it's top of the hour, so I think we've got time for just one more question. And a question here from Eunice asking, you spoke, Rob, about business functions, its complicated notion. So what's a business function for ArchiMate and TOGAF? The difference with an activity, for example?
Yeah. Business functions in ArchiMate and TOGAF are mostly used to describe the high-level business function, more a bit in the sense of a business capability. So what are business functions we as an organization always have on a high level. So then you really can talk about we need something like HR, CRM, for example, in data steel, production management is a big function. And you can detail it further down, but it's describing your big function, which you need to have, and it's not talking about what activities we do in which order. Then you really talk about processes. So if you look further, then you have a business function which consists of several business processes which are executed in order to fulfill the production management vision. So higher level.
That's fantastic. Well, I think this is a good time now to bring today's event to an end. If we haven't managed to answer your questions, please feel free to email your questions in. I'm sure we can handle those offline after this event. Rob, I'd like to thank you for your time today, and I'd like to thank everyone for participating. And at this point, I'll draw the event to a conclusion. Many thanks.